Land Association monthly board meeting. And at this time, conducting a roll call, I see that we have 6 board members present. We have 3 absent. We were aware of their absences: Bob Wood, Judy Monaco, and Tony Martin. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to excuse. Tony, are you here?
Yeah.
I was able to join.
Okay, great. Then I'll revise that since Tony is able to join us, then we're excusing Judy, Monaco, and Bob Wood. I'll entertain a motion at this time to approve their absences from the meeting.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. At this time, we have 2 guests present who would like to address the board. We have Pop, and we'll start with Pop first.
Right here.
Okay. I thought you were on the other side, Pop, so got me confused. All right.
I'm Pop Senewong. I'm the resident of 2 Tidewater Way, and like to address the board on the extension of the golf cart pad around the Tidewater Square. So are you going to present the plan, or?
We will later on within
Okay.
the meeting. At this time, this is an opportunity for guests or residents to address the board and make any statement they'd like to make at the board at this time.
With the plan that proposed to us yesterday of extending the current path from the Wiley Bottom and Tidewater intersection, and the cart path will extend all the way to the columns and then get into the Tidewater Square itself. Well, Daryl and they're also resident on Tidewater Waterway, and he also has a concern with the potential hazard that creating by having the golf cart path go under the columns and then go into the square. And then we see a lot of hazard condition on that.
Okay. Thank you. Daryl?
Hi, just to elaborate on what Pop was saying is, I guess you'll see later in the meeting a drawing for a proposed cart path that goes through the middle of Tidewater Square, entering on the north side, sort of from an extension of the existing cart path that runs along Tidewater Way, and then crossing Tidewater Square on the north side, transiting Tidewater Square and exiting on the south, sort of aligned with the southbound traffic. And I think the main concerns that we have are, from a safety standpoint, if you allow cart traffic on that path as opposed to just bicycles and pedestrian traffic, you create a situation where carts that are heading northbound, trying to get to the cart path to go through the square, will be moving in the opposite direction of oncoming motor vehicles in order to get to the curb cut to enter the interior part of the square. And so you have cars coming around the corner by Mr. Anderson's house, which is near the southerly exit point from the square. And carts, in order to enter, will be either coming up Tidewater Way in the wrong direction, or they'll be coming inside Tidewater Square in the wrong direction to try and get to where that path is. That seems like a poor design from a safety standpoint. A better way to address that might be to have the cart path take more of a Y shape so that northbound traffic enters near the northbound entry to Tidewater Square, because this is hard to do without the diagram, but cars that are heading towards the main gate and entering the square they would be on the right-hand side, and so would carts. They'd be on the right-hand side, but the path is going to be on the left-hand side, so they would have to turn left to get on the path. But if they could go straight and get on a path that joins somewhere in the middle, so it's sort of like an upside-down Y-shaped path, to me that seems like it would reduce the number of conflicts between vehicles and or motor vehicles and carts or bicycles. Another way to make it safer and we think more aesthetically pleasing would be to just have the path through the square be for pedestrians and bicycles and not for golf carts. And one way to do that would be to put bollards at both ends of the path inside the square, so that it's clear that you can't get your cart here, and maybe you have a sign that says no carts. And so that the carts would just go the way they've always been going around the square, and bicyclists could take advantage of the new community path, and walkers could take advantage of the new community path. A concern was addressed or raised yesterday that bollards present a risk that bicyclists might collide with the bollards, and that could somehow create a dangerous condition or liability. But if there were stop signs at the bollards, which there should be because the traffic should stop before entering the roadway in Tidewater Square in either direction, then it's hard to imagine a bicyclist who has come to a full stop would then have a dangerous collision with a bollard that's, right there. That you can walk your bike through the bollards and then proceed on your way. The other concern that we have about the whole plan is that we think that it will eventually lead to the removal of the entry monuments, which staff has identified some structural problems with, and we think that they create some sightline issues with the proposed cart path, and that once the cart path is installed, then there will be some momentum to come back with monuments that are much, much smaller, much less visually impactful, in order to improve the sight lines for the cart path. And to us, those grand entry monuments on the two corners where our two houses are really beautiful features, and they're things that make the square a distinctive place in the landings. One of the reasons that people will want to take their family photographs in the square, and it's part of what gives it the character that it has. And that if this plan is sort of the first step on a slippery slope to downgrading the entry features, then that's something that also was a concern to us as residents who were right there.
Okay. Well, the board thanks you for your comments, and I know the staff has met with residents. I believe both of you were, at least one of you were in attendance in that meeting. And your concerns are taken into consideration by staff and by the board as any decisions are made going forward. Preservation of Tidewater Square, of course, is very important to residents. It's important to the TLA and to the board, as is the safety and the safety of all, and the drainage issues that have to be addressed there. So all of these things will come into consideration as the staff makes recommendations to the board and the board deliberates and makes decisions. So thank you for your input. It is always greatly appreciated from any residents. At this time, looking at the consent agenda and the minutes from last board meeting, I'll accept a recommendation at this time for the consent agenda to be, a motion for it to be approved along with the minutes. Is there such a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Gary. Second?
Second.
Okay. Any board members have a comment on the consent agenda? Not at this time. Okay. All in favor of adopting the consent agenda and the minutes from last month, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is accepted. At this time, we'll hear from Mike Farber. Mike. Mike, your mic's not on. We can't hear you. You're muted. There we go.
You're right, the lips are moving and there's no sound.
You're talking too fast for me to read your lips.
Yeah, that could be difficult. So anyway, thanks for having me. I wish I could have joined you in person today. I saw you are more open again now. So maybe going forward, I'll be able to do that. I had a late meeting over at the offices here on Green Island Road, so I'm still here. But anyway, the club had another great month. Really, the first quarter of 2022 has been tremendous. We're ahead in the month of March on our transfer to capital by about 47,000. And on a year-to-date basis, we're 216,000 ahead of budget. So membership's strong, revenues are strong. We obviously had the Club Car Championship at the end of March going into the beginning of April. And those 3 days, April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, were all record revenue days for the club. So it was a very successful tournament. Weather was terrific overall. And it was great to see membership respond and come out and enjoy not only the Club Car Championship and seeing TJ Vogel win the tournament, but also getting around to other club venues that weekend. But we're membership-wise at 3,262 members. That's a record. And I hope to keep saying that each month this year as we add a few more into the mix. Golf joins year to date are plus 28. They were 7 over total resignations on a year to date basis, so that's positive. Full golf membership is at 1,581 members. Not a record, but definitely a strong showing given our probably last 7 to 10 year track record. The Golf Performance Center is coming along well. We should have that up and running before the end of May. The board recently made a decision at the recommendation of the Performance Center Committee to add the additional 3 bays to the side of the building of the Performance Center. And so we'll have those 3 bays up and running sometime, probably by the middle of the summer, so members can enjoy those to go in with some limited technology and hit golf balls, work on their game and so forth. We had a couple of big CARs. One in particular was on golf course maintenance equipment. We've gone to a new program where we will begin to lease some of the primary equipment that we use, mowers and such, which will be, I think, about 1/3 of what our annual purchases, or what our our gross needs are for golf course maintenance equipment. So we'll lease on a 4-year basis. We'll be turning that equipment over on a faster basis. Should allow us to do a much better job from a maintenance standpoint, and also should start to eliminate some of the problems from equipment failures and other issues that we have. We also added a CAR for supplies that we'll need in 2023, trying to get ahead of the pricing curve on the Palmetto renovation, which will take place in 23. We are finishing up the architect meetings this week. I think we'll have 4 architects in place that will have met with our committee and then be coming forward with a recommendation to the board for who we would like to use to work with us to renovate the Palmetto course. Other than that, the Challenger has started. I'm personally looking forward to getting by. I've never been by to watch that tournament. I can't believe it in the 12 years that I've been a member here. So I'm going to get by and take a look and see some good tennis this week. I know it presents some parking problems for us over there at Franklin Creek, but there's a lot of good tennis going on from what I hear, so should be a fun time. But other than that, things are going well. We're very encouraged by the year so far, and hope the pace continues. Any questions anybody has for me?
Any questions from Mike? No questions at this time. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Well, thanks, Mark. Thank you.
Bob Egan. Bob, you're up.
Yes, Mark. Good afternoon, everyone. Animal Emergency Services also had a good month. We have a good month when we have no major fires, and we had one minor activity with a dryer, but no major activities in terms of fires, which is clearly our hope and our goal. And you see, we have a few gas leaks. Our first responder calls a little bit lower than normal. They're normally more up in the 90s, but again, overall, you see that we had the same type of calls, lift assist, you name it, public service assist, and etc. So total, we had 87 calls. We had 60 of them were our private number, which again is very good. It's better than it has been. So overall, we had another good month in the month of March. I'm also happy to report our relationship with the county continues to grow. I think I've told you this before, we provide in arrears 1 month of our expenditures, and then they compensate us by month. Shortly, we'll be going into a planning process with them, so we will put an annual plan together, which will begin in July of this year, and then that's how we'll go forward. So overall, it's good. We haven't had any additional discussions about the subscriptions and the refunds of some subscriptions, but that will come over time. So that's all I have to report. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Any questions for Bob? No questions. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you all.
General Manager, Carl.
Okay, thank you. I just had a couple of items to report on. One is the first 50th anniversary event is May 15th. We'll be out here. We'll have a scavenger hunt, band, food trucks, several different food trucks, some kids' activities. So we're looking forward to that. We've been publicizing it, and we'll continue to put out more information as everything gets tightened up on that as we get closer to the event. Have some good volunteers working on that, and Communications Manager Lynn Lewis leading that up, so that is good. The other one I want to point out is if you haven't gotten a chance to go out to our track around the Lanes Community Park yet, the rubberized surface is now on it. I know Public Works will continue to tweak it and work with some seams and some of that kind of stuff, but I saw first jogger I saw out there today, so people are out there using it. It feels really good on the joints if you're out there, so continued improvements, and we had some supply chain shortages that we finally got it in, and once we got it in, we've gotten it out there, and it seems to be working pretty well so far. Yep, okay. Does anybody have any questions for me on anything in the weekly report or anything else?
Carl, just one question. You said it feels really good on the joints. So if you have joint pain, if you go out and run on that, will it help?
It won't make it worse.
Okay.
It feels fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and now we'll turn it over to Jessica for our financial report. Jessica?
The financial information for the end of March will begin on page 11 in your packet. At the end of March, the total cash balance equaled $13.854 million, and investments totaled $3.486 million. Since the last board meeting, the association has received the final payment for the employee retention tax credit that was owed for 2020. We still are waiting on our payment from the Internal Revenue Service for the 2021 employer retention credit, and we hope to hear from them soon. Also, since the last board meeting, the investment subcommittee and staff has been working closely with our representative from Financial Northeastern Company. We took advantage of the time period that the interest rates were rising, and we placed $2.7 million between certificate of deposits and U.S. Treasury bonds. These maturity dates range from 3 months to an 18-month period, and the interest rate can vary between those different investments from 0.44% to 2.03%. Total operating revenue at the end of March equals $2.520 million compared to the budget of $2.458 million. So that's $62,000 more than our budget and also more than where we were at the end of March of 2021. Total operating expenses before depreciation equal $2.328 million compared to the budget of $2.447, which is $119,000 less than our budget, but also more than where we were at the end of March of 2021. Net operating revenue after depreciation is negative $4,166, which is $181,000 better than what our budget projected. A few of those reasons for the better than budget where our net revenue ended at the end of March. Architectural fee revenue, we saw new construction in March. Our rental income is mainly due to revenue we received from our telecommunications lease. Fuel sales performing better than budget. This is a combination of not only the price per gallon, but the volume that's been sold. Member services is mainly due to chipping revenue. Staffing expense is performing better than budget, however, more than where we were at the end of 2021 due to using forfeited funds for the employer portion of our 401k expense. Dredging expense is currently performing better than budget. This is due to where the budget's placed versus the timing of the invoices of how that was paid to the contractor. However, we do anticipate that we're going to end this project better than budget if all things go well until completion. Engineering services is performing better than budget, mainly due to the timing of the projects and how that budget was placed throughout the year. Total expenses at the end of March equal $391,000 for our capital reserves out of a $4.852 million budget. We'll continue to update this graph throughout the year as these projects continue with our capital reserves funds. Members' equity at the end of March equaled $13.237 million, which is an increase of $871,000 since December of 2021. Accounts receivable aging, we currently have 33 non-assessment accounts with a balance of 90 plus past due. 7 of those accounts are with our collection attorney. We have 38 accounts for our assessments compared to 154 in 2021 at the same time. So we started in January, we have 4,420 lots that we assess payments to. We got to April 1st, which is when letters are to be sent and privileges are to be suspended. We had 215 delinquent accounts. April 4th, we had 188 delinquent accounts. April the 8th, we went down to 80, and now we're at 38 accounts on April 26th. So how did we get there? Like I said, we started at 4,420. We communicated with 5 standalone messages beginning on January 27th through February 24th. 3 e-news articles, January 28th through February 25th. We had targeted messages that went out to those that were on the payment plan in previous years on January 31st and February 28th to ask if they would like to continue to enroll in either the monthly or the quarterly payment plan. And on my next slide, you'll see where we have had tremendous participation in both of those payment plans. We had 1 email message that went out notifying people of a delay in their ACH being pulled from their account for those that were already enrolled. And then we sent 3 targeted messages via email to those that still had a delinquent balance on March 22nd, 28th, and 30th. There was also a YouTube video that was shared via Instagram and Facebook with general information of how you could pay your assessment, what those dues are go towards, and information how you could contact us if you had questions. So on April 4th, we sent 188 letters out, which is very favorable to where we would have been those numbers last year in 2021. As I mentioned, we have had greater participation, so you can see the numbers. We have 137 enrolled in the monthly payment plan in 2022 compared to 118 last year. We're at 359 that's enrolled in the quarterly payment plan compared to 281 last year. I'll be happy to take any questions about the financial information.
Any questions for Jessica? No questions. Thank you, Jessica.
Thanks.
All right, now we go to Aaron for Community Development Report.
Good afternoon.
Oh,
All right, can you all see the presentation?
yes.
Excellent. So I'm here to present the community development activity for the month of March. Our permitting levels for the community, whoops, actually just a second, sorry about that. There we go. So our permitting levels for the month of March have remained steady over the last few months. We've been very consistent in the numbers of permits coming in. We are at 110 this year. It is a drop from where we were this time last year, but I foresee that we're going to remain fairly steady this year based on the first 3 months of this year and the activity that's coming forth. Our number of applications reviewed by the ARC is also very steady. We were at 42 applications this year and this same time last year and last month. So 42 apparently is quite the number. The summary of the construction activity ongoing, we had 3 new homes completed. That's a total of 6 so far this year. We had 1 new home started. So we have 33 active construction sites, although that number is always rising as we have new projects break ground. We had 6 major improvements, 48 minor improvements, 17 dumpsters, pods, or porta-johns, and 37 permit extension requests. Again, we're seeing a rise in those permit extension requests due to contractor shortages and material shortages. So the trend we're seeing so far this year is that the activity is staying very steady and comparable to those numbers of 2021. The majority of our permitting is for those minor improvements such as maintenance, painting, and re-roofing. This month, the major improvements were actually for, the majority of them were for bonus rooms and garage additions. We did still have a few screened porches and outdoor living features, but it was an interesting change to see that the type of development is changing a bit. And then of course, we're still seeing the rise in the permit extension requests. So as you can see from last month's numbers, about 34% of the applications were for permit extension requests. And from the numbers from 2021 versus 2022, you can see that portion of the permitting is starting to rise, where it was 14% of our permits last year, and this year it's more like 27% thus far. Our PPMS violations are on a steady rise, as we would have expected with spring coming. We often find that there's a trend in landscaping and maintenance issues that arise. We are a bit higher than we were this time last year. We had 22 violations last month and 14 in the prior year. And we have had a decline in some of the courtesy notices, and that's probably in that inverse relation where as there are more violations, there are less courtesy notices. But we do expect to see this number continue to rise up as we initiate additional communication strategies with the community. So the summary of inspection activities, we had 252 site visits related to ARC inspections performed throughout the community, just over 1,300 proactive PPMS and follow-up inspections. And those were in phase 1, phase 2, and midpoint. And we had 25 violations resolved, and all of those were through conversations with staff. I think that speaks volumes to the ability of the members of this department, and I really appreciate our inspection team. They've been doing a great job, and it's awesome to know that we were able to get compliance without even having to send out a letter. So I'm available to answer any questions that you may have over the information and the activity for the month of March.
Any questions for Aaron? No questions. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
All right, Tim with security.
Okay, can everybody hear me and see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay. I hate to jinx anything here, but March for us was a good month as well, relatively speaking. No Part 1 crimes, burglary, theft, vandalism, or trespass. So I think that's a unprecedented statistic here. I have to look further. The only Part 1 crime that occurred on the island was in South Farber. There were no thefts or vandalism, again, unprecedented there. For the year overview, Department of Crimes down 7 to 3, burglaries and thefts down from 9 to 5, vandalism down from 3 to 2, and trespass was actually up from 1 to 2. We are trailing a little bit in golf cart statistics as you look. We did have double the amount, but still looking at the overall number from 2 to 4 complaints, so still relatively low. Number of citations issued was down by 60%, and the overall fines was down by 30%. Large golf cart statistics, again, the only one we had was an unregistered cart, and $75 in fines was issued for the unregistered cart. As mentioned previously in last month's briefing and board workshop, the safe use actions are available at Landings Harbor now, and we've been selling quite a few of those until we turned over to the harbor, so hopefully we'll continue to sell down there. And that's pretty much it. Any questions?
Any questions for Tim? No questions? Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Take it away.
All right. If everyone will turn to page 30 in their packets, you'll see the staff report associated with this project. One thing we did want to do today is also go through the PowerPoint that we sat down and went through with some of the residents in the Tidewater Square area, so that the board would have the same information, a little bit of the background, which y'all are aware of, but it's always good to kind of refresh. So the engineering occurred at Tidewater Square over the last few years. Moffitt & Nickel has been our engineering firm that was contracted to perform the original study within the square to identify some of the issues we've had. Terracon was a subcontractor that did the geotechnical reports. Coleman Engineering was also a subcontractor through this process to do all of the surveying of the square to get the information, elevations, things of that nature. Once all that information was collected, it was then sent over to Moffitt & Nickel to then go through and develop a plan originally for redevelopment and possible replacement of the square, which has now turned into a maintenance plan to try to extend the life of the square as long as possible. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So the key findings within the report for the square is that and this is the verbiage directly out of the report, the existing clay bricks are in poor condition. They have surpassed their structural strength capacity and design life period for current use. There is a lack of surface draining, which is causing pumping, which I'll show you a couple pictures of that, of what that kind of looks like. There's also a lack of subgrade drainage. Road base remains saturated with water, which in turn is causing some of the shifting and movement of the bricks, some of the potholing, if you will. And then the third issue is that there's an insufficient road cross slope, which is the slope to allow for proper drainage and getting the water across. Very little cross slope, should be between 2 and 2.5%. We're a little closer to the 0 to 1%, almost flat in most cases. So this maintenance plan is really to address a lot of our drainage issues associated with the square. We can't do much with the road slope unless we do a full replacement of the square at that time. I do want to start and be very clear that this proposal does not include any modification, repair, replacement, removal of the columns or structures that are in the picture on the left. That will be a separate project that will come to the board, and that will be an unbudgeted, unfunded project. We have had 4 different contractors out to look at the structures themselves. The columns on the right, you can actually kind of see from this picture, is actually sinking and leaning over to the left, which was identified during the survey by the engineers, which deemed it as a concern and hazard. It's actually created some stair-step cracking throughout the structure, not only in the first column, but also into the second column and then into the wing wall that comes down and through. So right now we're looking at different options as far as restoration. We met, like I said, with multiple contractors, of which 2 feel they might have an option for us. from a full replacement like for like to a trying to rebuild a foundation underneath the structure, re-support it, and as they put it, stop the bleeding as far as the settling that's occurring. The biggest challenge with the columns is that they are placed on very poor foundations. In most cases, about a third the size of what they should be if they were put in today. So, makes for some of the challenge. The picture on your right is kind of your entryway as you're coming into the square. This gives you an idea and kind of shows you the degradation within the bricks. One of the biggest challenges we have with the square is as we go out and try to repair sections, when you pull the bricks out, they don't come out as solid bricks. They come out in 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces, as most of them are cracked and actually failed. A lot of that's due to the water infiltration into the bricks themselves and into the base underneath, and then a lot of the heavy traffic that occurs over the top of the square itself. One of the other challenges you can see here is the pumping. A lot of this dirt that's actually coming up, you can see the lighter areas is actually the sand base that's actually being pumped out. This occurs when the water moves across the brick and is trying to get to the one inlet. You can actually see the picture on the right. What's occurring here is that the water doesn't make it all the way to the inlet. It actually infiltrates between the bricks, which causes the sand to pump out, and in turn causes the bricks to sink. In a lot of cases in the geotechnical reports, it was simply bricks sitting on top of crush and run base. All of the sand base, which is typically a few inches, is actually pumped out of the system. So, just a couple other pictures kind of showing one of the other challenges we found is the connection between the brick and the roadway. There's currently, and this is as you're entering into the square, there's really just a gap between the two. On the other side of Tidewater, as you're going into Tidewater, we've actually found that they actually just asphalted over the top of the bricks. So I'm not sure how far the bricks extend underneath the asphalt, but they never made a true connection. Again, another area that can get in, water can cause issues. And if I've learned anything from Bill and our engineers, is there's 3 things that destroys roads, and that's water, water, and water. And so I would say that these are all major issues within this area as far as causing a lot of our drainage problems. So the objectives for this project are 1, to preserve the brick square roadway. We heard loud and clear from the community last year that the brick square and the roadway is critical and important and an important feature for the community. So to do this, we need to address the drainage issues. We need to utilize bricks from the walkway to repair the square. One of the challenges we have is that the bricks themselves are no longer produced. The company actually is no longer in business. We've been talking with multiple different brick vendors trying to see if we can locate those. We have not been able to. The other challenge is that, and I can show you in the this picture, is as trying to match the color is very difficult because there's actually a glaze on these bricks. You can see this darker color is the color of the bricks. Most of these, and you can see some of them are starting to fade. As they wear off, that glaze is wore off, so trying to color match would be near impossible. Using the bricks from inside the square and the walkway has the same age, if you will, but not the same amount of traffic, and gives us the ability to try to match this very closely without having to modify the system. The other challenge with the bricks is they're not a nominal size. Actually in thickness, they're thicker than a typical brick, so it would be a special order to try to make. In a lot of cases, they will try to make those and color match as close as possible, but you usually need to have a fairly large order to do those type of customs. The other thing that we need to do to really try to protect the square is increase security patrols to address overweight trucks traveling through the square. Today is a perfect example. If you are coming out of Tidewater, you all might have passed it as you came here. As you're coming out of Tidewater, we had a lowboy that went down following his GPS, got to Tidewater Square with an excavator on the back of it, realized there's no way he would be able to make it around the square, then backed all the way back down Tidewater until he hit the center island and crushed the curbs. And so those type of, in our modern day age with GPS and everyone just follows their little triangle on their GPS, trying to keep those trucks out of there, making sure that we are preventatively keeping a lot of that heavy load material out of there will also help kind of preserve some of the bricks and address some of the sub-base issues. The other items we also are looking at is improving the connectivity for bikers, pedestrians, and golf carts. Right now on both sides of the square, we have a cart or community trail path that dumps out into the roadway at the intersection of Tidewater and Tidewater once you're inside of the square. And another one that dumps off at Wiley Bottom and Tidewater before you get into the square. So part of this is looking at how do we better improve that connectivity so we don't have walkers, bikers, golf carts, everything all in the roadway trying to transverse through that area. The current brick walkways are a tripping hazard if you've gone through the square itself, and the reason I think a lot of people don't utilize it is because there is a lot of root intrusions under those walkways, which are causing a lot of people to just bypass that completely. The new path we are proposing would be concrete path, and we are proposing to be consistent with others within the community, with the exception of some of the feedback we did receive from the residents was trying to match it to with a dye to a brick color, similar to what we've done with the concrete ribbon that we put in for the repair a few years ago, to try to match that aesthetic as best we could. Here's a diagram of kind of what is existing. This is our from our survey. The recommendation that staff has is the dark areas or the walkways would be palletized. We've removed those bricks, palletize them, and then be able to reutilize them within the square for repairs and future repairs. We would leave the small kind of meeting area, if you would, in the middle of the square that would be brick, that would be lifted up and repaired, because currently there was very little base underneath it, so it actually sat or kind of sinks down on each end. And those areas would be removed, and again, those bricks would be repurposed into the square itself. Just to give you an idea of kind of what those walkways look like, they're very close or identical in color match, and they do need a little bit of pressure washing and cleaning before we palletize to be able to get them looking like the other square bricks. This is the plan, total project. Again, the first item we're going to address from a drainage standpoint is the gutter system. You can see in the blue around the square itself, that will become a concrete gutter. The curb itself will be the curb, and then your gutter would be used to transverse the water to the inlet boxes. We'll have 3 inlet boxes that will be, there's only currently one existing, which is down on the, I guess it would be the south side of the square. We'd be adding additional 2 to that area to get that water to transfer directly to the pond. Again, the goal is try to get as much water off of the square as quickly as possible to allow for that water to get to the lagoon versus infiltrate into the square. Currently, we only have 1 inlet box, so a drop of water that hits the square here has to travel all the way around the square to get to this inlet box one way or another. One of the biggest challenges we've had is that a single root intrusion within that process can create a dam, which in turn will create a fail point for that drainage. The concrete curb will be a non-pervious and allow that water to actually transfer all the way through. The yellow areas will be the additional drainage pipe or storm drain pipe that will be installed and connecting those inlet boxes. You'll see there is actually 2 additional new ones, and then we'll have a junction box located in the middle of the square. To some of the questions or comments we had earlier, the community path you can see comes in. We're off of the existing Wiley Bottom section. There would be a pedestrian, a stop sign, pedestrian crosswalk, and then it would come in and cross over and discharge all traffic kind of into the outgoing lane, if you will, into Tidewater Square. The thought process in this is, if you look at the master plan, ultimately there was a design to have that path going through or around. They didn't have a very good description of it, nor was it ever installed by the original developer. But ultimately having a way to get everyone from through the square and connect it back over to the path eventually, which is at the intersection of Tidewater and Tidewater. This program, we don't have enough funds allocated, and the path is actually funded through the Community Paths Capital Reserve project that we're currently working on. And so we can look at, to Daryl's point, I believe, when we were talking earlier, if we do want to have another section that comes across to allow traffic in that's coming in this way, or we can look at those kind of corrective items for that. We can have Moff and Nickel actually review that. And then the areas that are in red are areas of the major brick repair, where we're going to have to go in, where we have a lot of the potholes that currently exist within the square, and that's where we'll be taking those sections out and then actually repairing them. We'll be using multiple contractors for this. You can see the picture as an example of we did do a small demo to really see what our color match would be for concrete against the curb for the gutter. And in total, we'll have multiple contractors looking at this project. Total project cost is $150,000. We'll be working with Absolute Concrete, Ace Development, Savannah Hardscapes, and Brightview. And we'll also have a $9,865 contingency on this program to improve the overall drainage within the square itself. And again, some of the ancillary column and repairs of those will come at a later date. That is not part of this project. So with that, I'll ask for any questions.
Board member questions, Andrea?
I'd like to, if I can wind back for an hour, I think it was Daryl, are you suggesting that we should have two paths as opposed to having a one-way path where people might encounter each other?
May I,
Yeah, I mean, I have to understand what you're saying.
So, if somebody's on a bicycle or a golf cart and they're going this way,
Right.
and they want to get to this path,
Uh-huh.
they have to turn into oncoming traffic
Right.
In order to get there.
Gotcha.
And so what I think might be something worth considering is having like some kind of a branch off of this path to somewhere around here so that somebody on a bike could not have to,
Right.
go head on with automobiles and still make it through the square.
Okay, so, because I guess part of what I'm saying is, I mean, if you've ever driven a cart on any of our cart paths, you have to hope the person coming towards you cares whether or not they ram you. In terms of, there's no wording for people going two directions, but you're suggesting that the danger is to get to that path, you're gonna have to face oncoming traffic.
Yeah, with automobiles.
Well, but, and I don't disagree with you, but, once upon a time, people got off their bikes and just walked it across the street, and I'm not suggesting that that's not doable or is doable. The whole problem with this whole thing is that this is an expensive road and it's an expensive community, and we're fixing things there that fixing it costs way more than it would cost to fix it someplace else in the community. And that's where, yes, he said we're using paths. There's all kinds of paths that need to be repaired. So putting extra money into repairing paths, and I've talked to several of my friends in Tidewater, I think I've said to some of them, would you guys be interested in doing what used to happen at the landings? If you really wanted something, you helped raise the money to do it.
I'm gonna ask at this time, let's limit our questions for Sean about the process and the proposed,
Good point,
the
yes.
recommendation.
Good point. I just needed to understand what you were.
One question,
Sure.
and I went by the other day, so you have a granite curb and you had a concrete gutter.
Right.
So what keeps the water from flowing down there? So do you have some kind of seal, or what have you done?
There's a caulking that's gonna go between the concrete and the granite.
There's a caulking that actually will go between, and then the shape of the valley itself.
Yeah.
So if you get what I always call the gully washers, that can hit to the curb, and that caulking should be able to prevent. And then a general rain will stay just within the concrete valley itself and never actually get
It's
to the
a
curb.
V shape. So when the water comes off the road, it's gonna hit the V and flow. It's not gonna ride up into the granite unless there's a major flood or something.
Okay.
A good example is when you come out of Wiley Bottom, when you cross the road, you cross through one of our valleys. And everyone always asks us to fill it in because it's a bump, but it's a drainage feature more so than a bump. So, but that's a kind of the same philosophy would be used.
Sean, how much cart traffic is there around the square here?
I haven't done any true traffic studies to be able to see the number of carts. I will say in the majority of carts, now they only have one option to stay in the square. I think that will probably still be the pattern. And there will still be the dump out right at Wiley Bottom where they can go out to the square. And we even talked about signage, about having signage saying carts to the right, pedestrian straight ahead, which would give it another option as far as, what we have, but ultimately we would have the same standard for the cart path. It would be 8-foot wide paths, similar to all of our other trails that go through the community. But I don't have a number as far as number of carts that go through that area on a daily basis.
Daryl suggests to put a bowl somewhere around there so the golf cart won't go through the square, but go out to Tidewater Way and follow the flow of traffic like they used to.
So, and I'll address that, and it came up yesterday, and I'll give the same answer as yesterday. Through some of our Community Association Institute research, CAI, which is the clearinghouse of what we do our studies on, there was a case, I believe it was last year, where somebody on a bike, and there's gonna be stop signs, but if people go through it, if they hit a bollard at speed, they were found liable. The association was found liable for that. So the bollards we put into place, the ones that I am picturing are more of towards gravel areas, or we want to keep a cart off of it, but they're not coming at a speed. It's coming across the street or something like that. But
Nature trail would be an example.
Nature trail is a perfect example of something like that.
Today, if you let them go through that column, right? If they hit that column, they're gonna sue anyway.
We're not going through the
It
column.
would go around the column.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
And let me focus, I want to make sure that the board understands the focus, that the main request here is to address the drainage. The cart path is a kind of a secondary that we can tweak how we need to, but in my opinion, the drainage is the root cause issue that's going on within the square, and this proposal on page 30 is to address the drainage.
One other question. The square footage of brick that you're bringing up is adequate to fix what's there and have brick left over? Is that what I'm hearing?
If we have assumptions of
If they can bring it up to that.
So we have assumptions about 40% of the brick we're going to pull out will not be usable.
Right.
And we have about 10% inside. And so when you take what is available plus what we have, we should have enough to repair all the potholed areas.
Go back to that diagram real quick, because you didn't. It's all the areas. Go back to the one that has the brick repair highlighted.
Yeah.
Right there. So that's where the focus is going to be, especially over on the curves and everything.
I was just looking at it. It seemed to me like we're going to have adequate brick to do the repairs,
Yes.
even with the broken brick and that, and maybe have some left over.
We're hoping to have some left over
Yeah.
because if history serves correct, we will have on these corners
Yeah.
yearly maintenance on all these
absolutely.
transition areas where we have to come in and pothole and patch repair.
Okay.
Okay. Any of the board members have questions? Tony, I know you're online. Did you have any questions? Not hearing any. Okay, so at this point, I'm looking for a motion to approve the maintenance project for Tidewater Square as Sean has presented to us for a total of $150,000.
So moved.
Okay?
Second.
Motion's made and second. Any other discussion from board members on this?
What's the timing on this, then, Sean?
We have to get out in front of the contractors to get the bricks removed and palletized, and then we'll start the drainage. And so, Bill, you're working right now. We haven't confirmed any dates. We tentatively, until we get board approval, we don't want to lock a contractor into a date, but tentatively right now we're scheduled for.
Right now, the drainage portion of this project is scheduled for the 16th of May. During that week, it'll be a simultaneously the gutter will be going in along with the drainage section, be going in during that week. And it should take us about a week to 10 days to complete that. And then the road surface, once we do our calculations on the brick and how much brick we're gonna need, et cetera, that'll probably take 2 days, and it will require us shutting down the square for 2 days.
Okay.
And can we separate that scheduling from addressing ultimately, I saw you say we could look at that relating to.
Yeah, we continue to look at everything. And
That's what I'm saying, we're not putting everything in stone. Well, that's bad.
that's the last part of it. That's the last part of it.
It's clay.
So there's room for massaging the data a
Exactly.
bit.
Right.
Yes.
So
We need to
I
get
think
started
to
on
summarize
that.
what Sean has said, we're going to address the drainage first.
Absolutely.
During that
work has to be
same,
done first.
all that work has to be done first, and during that same time, there have been some things mentioned about the path that are gonna continue to be looked at. And you even mentioned having Moffett Nichols take a look at some of the suggestions and give their opinion from an engineering standpoint on that. So all of that will continue to go on, but the drainage work and that part of the project will begin just as soon as we can begin that, because the longer we delay that, the more degradation occurs to that base.
That's right. I just want to make it clear that we're not saying, go away, we're not listening to any more noise.
Not at all.
We're doing-
No, not
Not at all.
not at all.
Thanks.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Sean, you have a couple more for us?
Alright, so let me introduce Ingrid Patel, our facility manager.
I'll change the subject real quick.
So Ingrid's gonna run over the next two projects with y'all, which is the mailbox and sign painting program, and then also our gate replacement for the Deer Creek North Access Control.
Give Sean's voice a break.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. In your packet on page 33, you will see a report recommending a contract with JF Paint to complete the 2022 mailbox and street sign painting program. The amount of the project will be $54,864 with a $4,000 contingency included, for a total project price of $58,864. This year, we reached out to 8 local paint contractors around the Savannah area to obtain bids for this project. Only 2 contractors provided bids for the project. The remaining 6 declined to bid. Both of the bids exceeded the budgeted amount of $58,000. JF Paint was the low bidder. So for several reasons why it was so high is, we all know, staffing, increase of materials, lack of insurance to cover the employees to work on the project. So in an effort to get closer to the budget, we decided to reduce the scope of work, and how staff will be painting the street signs in the Marshwood area of the community, while JF Paint, I'll never forget that one, will I? JF Paint will paint all the mailbox, posts, tubes, yard plaques within the Marshwood area of the community. So we're asking for a recommendation to approve. Any questions or concerns?
I have a question, just
Sure.
for clarification on one part.
Yes,
It
sir.
said that 1/3 of the community mailboxes. So is the 58,000 representing what it will be to do 1/3 of the mailboxes? So
Third of
then,
the community's mailboxes.
well, yeah.
Yes, it's about
So-
1,400, give or take.
So then, when will the next 1/3 of the community's mailboxes be done?
Next year.
Next year.
2037.
So each year you're gonna come to us with 58.
Well, it's probably gonna be a little more next year.
Okay,
If,
and
if it looks like it's looking,
And how often do these things have to be repainted?
So I can help you answer that. We have a 3-year program now, is our maintenance program, to have them painted on a 3-year cycle. So each year we just hopscotch to a different area of the community, and on the year 4 we'll be back to where we started. We in past years have reduced that service level to a 1/6 of the community when we had a failed assessment. And I can tell you we saw a lot more degradation of our wood rot and problems within the boxes. So we think that 1/3 of the community per year or every 3-year cycle is the right timing and recommendation. Obviously, we get a lot of maintenance requests. I think Ingrid and her staff.
we average anywhere from 30 to 50 a month.
Yeah, C-click fix.
Right, with C-click fix. And so when they come out and they touch them, they go through everything. They paint, touch up, do everything. So that we should hopefully don't have to come back, and the maintenance program will pick it up from there.
So does the maintenance program, they don't just start fixing one that looks pretty good, or do we still use the 3-year?
So we try to assess everything. If we were to roll up to your mailbox and you said your mailbox was damaged. Well, while we're there, we try to take care of everything. We
Right.
paint the posts, we do the numbers. If something needs repairing further than what you discussed with us, we try to go ahead and take care of that.
Right.
So we're extending the life so that when the third of the community comes around, maybe all we have to do is paint the post.
Yeah, a lot of the kind of maintenance items, and then our C-click fix really turns into the my neighbor's backed into my mailbox
Yeah.
kind of repair, and so the maintenance side of that we can catch within the program, hopefully.
I just didn't understand.
All right, so at this time, I'm looking for a motion to approve the contract with JF Paint. Make sure I get that right. In the amount of $54,864 and $4,000 in materials. So is there a motion to?
I will make that motion.
Okay, a
I'll
second?
second.
All right. Any comments about the project or questions about the project? None? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now, Ingrid, we'll move on to Deer Creek Gate replacement.
Okay, on page 37 in your packet, you will see a report recommending a contract with Remote Technology in the amount of $59,166.66 for the replacement of the Deer Creek North Access Control Facility automatic gate system. The total project cost is for this will include $2,000 for concrete work and $6,000 as a contingency for a total project cost of $67,166.66. So, quick background: Deer Creek North is the last gate system within the community that has not been updated. So this will bring us all back to the same equipment. So staff solicited bids from 3 different access control dealers: Remote Technology, Carolina Time and Parking Group, and Brewer Technology Solutions. Of the 3 vendors, Remote Technology and Carolina Time successfully submitted bids. I will note that Carolina Time and Parking Group provided us with the lowest bid. However, they're really not very familiar with our behind-the-scenes operating systems, ABDI, and their past communications and customer service record are below par. Hence, that's why we're always back at Deer Creek Village fixing something. They installed that a couple years ago. So I would like to say that Remote Technology is well versed in all of our operating systems. They've provided vendor training for high security continental access, and we even did one this year with tray readers, which is your RFID, which reads your car, which opens the gate. They're very responsive. They provide service. They go above and beyond after normal business hours, even without a service contract. So we're recommending a contract with Remote Technology for $59,166.66, and staff is requesting a $6,000 contingency for unforeseen expenses, $2,000 for concrete work because we have to repair the concrete.
Okay, so we've heard the recommendation. At this time, we'll take a motion to accept that recommendation. So is there a motion to approve the contract with Remote Technology in the amount of $59,166.66 with an additional $2,000 for concrete work and a contingency in the amount of $6,000 for a total project cost of $67,166.66? Is there a motion to approve?
I so moved.
Okay, a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions about the project? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Amy. So next on the agenda is board committee and special reports. We've got governance committee, and Bill, I think you have the floor at this time.
Yes, and there's a staff report in your packet behind, it's on page 41. It's the one I'm looking at. This is a revision to the 2022 fee schedule, moving basically from a deposit for certain dumpsters, pods, and porta potties, which then is refundable when the project is done, to a system of just a simple fee that's assessed at the time of installation. When it's removed, there's a staff inspection to assure there's no damage. That would continue anyway. What this does is save a tremendous amount of staff processing. Right now, since it's a deposit, it has to go through 3 different departments, one to receive it and then to get it back out. And so this will resolve some of the issues of delay and processing time and improve staff ability to be efficient. So I'm recommending approval. There is a fiscal impact in that rather than the deposits, what the expected numbers of applications of this, it may end up being $15,000 a year revenue, but that's not the point of the proposal. The point of the proposal is to improve staff efficiency.
And this came before governance from, I believe Aaron presented and discussed that proposed revised fee schedule to governance. So governance is bringing it on to the board at this time. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the revised 2022 fee schedule. Is there such a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Kerry. Second?
Second.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Directors' comments and questions. Any directors, board members have a comment or a question related to action that you've been involved with or liaison with any committees?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. I'm on the architectural review. I'm the liaison, and at least in the last, I started weighing in on that before the election, just to see what the committees were like. And then I was appointed to that, so let's say 6, 7, 8 months maybe. The Architectural Review Committee, the staff handles quite a few things without having it to go to architectural review. But the ones that they do, they're at least over 30 at least 60 a month minimum, because they're there on the 1st and 3rd Thursday. And the people on the committee, it was increased by 1 this year. I think they do a really good job. And just to let you know, I did a little quick survey. The approval rate is at least 90%. So it's not, and I'm not saying it's approval on the first time that somebody submits, but it's not an onerous committee for somebody that lives here. I think they are very qualified people, or at least the majority of them have had work-life experience in that area. And they ask a lot of thought-provoking questions. And I think the ones that they've not approved, all of us would probably think that there was something wrong with what was submitted to begin with. It seemed like that. It seemed almost obvious. So I think it's a very good committee to try to keep the aesthetics and the quality of the committee up to date. And I just didn't know how much you all know about that, but I don't stay on for the full 3 to 4 hours. But I sit there and I look at it, and there are some that come back pretty frequently, but those get resolved. And it's a very hard-working committee, I think.
Yes, we do acknowledge a lot of that hard work, and it is a very time-consuming committee for a board member to be on twice a month. Any other board member comments? Okay. President's report. I just want to say that staff and the board, and when I say staff, I say the staff that work here in the main offices, and then the staff that work in other offices throughout. our community are open to comments from residents, and we all receive email from time to time. I received just this past week an email forwarded on to Kim, someone who said they couldn't get in touch with anyone at TLA offices. There was a problem with their phones and a line was supposedly cut, and they got in touch, sent me an email. So I just forwarded it on to Kim and said, can you point this resident in the right direction? And it just so happened the resident had come in, had made contact, they had already taken care of it. But the point that I'm making is that people are responsive when they know about an issue. So if it's that someone's calling and they're not getting someone to answer a phone, they may not have the right number or something may be going on, but if they'll reach out, we are responsive within TLA, staff and board members alike. So community comments and questions and opinions are very important to staff and to the board. And all of that's taken into consideration as we take prudent action. And I want to stress the word prudent action. Sometimes prudent action isn't agreeable to all of us, and probably isn't to all of us, but I think we all can agree that we want what's best for our community. And I know Carrie mentioned about the aesthetics and decisions that are made on ARC. Everyone's not always happy, but in general, what's being looked at is what's best for the entire community. So, Carrie, thank you for those comments. I also want to say, as far as being open and responsive to the community, Carl recently spoke at the Kiwanis morning, and you did say there was a breakfast. I'm still wondering what happened to my breakfast that morning.
Well, see, I got bumped from a previous thing, and there was breakfast the original day, so.
You still owe me a breakfast then.
That's right.
But Carl presented the strategic plan to Kiwanis, and there were an opportunity for question and answer. And I know those of you who are listening and watching this, or maybe didn't attend the annual meeting that we had, Carl thinks well on his feet. And he answers questions extremely well on his feet. While he was standing up there, I thought, I'm sure glad that it's not the board president who filled in all of those questions, because they ranged from dealing with the clothing people wear when they're jogging, walking, or bicycling, dealing with clothing that they're wearing, to just a variety of other things that came up. And I thought you handled that superbly, and I was so glad that you were handling that, and I wasn't.
Well, I appreciate that I did not have a good answer for how to deal with sand gnats, however, if you recall.
Yes, the sand gnats also. But thank goodness we deal with sand gnats and not snowdrifts.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, being no other business on our agenda at this time, I will look for a motion to adjourn to executive session.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned from the regular session into executive session.